We live in the age of science, and computers are getting faster and smarter every day. In order to keep up with the ever-increasing pace of innovation, in patch 1.8.1, Ubisoft Massive introduces a new revolutionary operating system. Delta server technology ushers in a new era for the Division, and it provides benefits for both the client and the customer alike. Delta server technology guarantees to deliver lower running costs, faster Delta error delivery, reduced financial commitment, increased Delta error throughput, lowered financial commitment, accelerated Delta error turnaround times, lower expenditure, increased capital investment for microtransactions. Finally, we have the perfect IT solution for massively increasing the delivery of Delta errors for only a fraction of the price. With Delta server technology, now just logging into the Division is a game in itself. Wankers. The state of the game in patch 1.8.1 is a genuine mixed bag. The Division is starting to look like we've been given a diamond encrusted solid gold bucket to shit in. It's all looking very pretty and expensive, only it arrived very late. It turns out it's only gold plated. The diamonds turned out to be rhinestones, and there's a fucking hole in the bottom. And as fucking beautiful as this bucket is looking, most of its effectiveness is neutralised by the fact that it has a fucking hole in it. Many good changes have been introduced to the loot system, only they arrived after over a year of screaming about it. And some of the drop rates don't seem to be implemented at all. The global events are looking quite good now, only most of us can't complete the cunting commendation caps because either the descriptions are downright wrong or the assignment is fucking broken. The exploits are actually growing faster than they're being fixed, but we're now being expected to trust that the Division 2 will be the land of milk and fucking honey, and this time everything is going to be alright on the fucking night. My arse. So let's take a look at the general news in Divisionville. Well, on the plus side, looking at April's community crime statistics, we had no recorded incidents of elite task force members ganking charity streamers, sabotaging any children's cancer charities, and there has been a notable reduction in state-sponsored online harassment. I guess their handlers have instructed them to keep their heads pulled in and not spoil the party before the E3 reveal. Talking of which, I'm getting a bit concerned that the Division 2 isn't going to be finished in time for E3, and the Ubisoft star players are going to find themselves sitting down in front of the cameras, forced to pretend to demo a game in front of the world's press that isn't even working. I guess they'll be okay though. After all, there'll be a load of elite task force members there, and they are fucking experts at playing the Division whilst pretending everything is working just fine. Everyone is still waiting to hear more about the Division 2, and thus far it's not been confirmed what cosmetic items are being carried over. Shields, for now at least, seem to be a tiny fucking concession to this. I say tiny because it's a way to deflect criticism when they Destiny 2 all our fucking cosmetic purchases and we see the same fucking items on sale in the Division 2 a few weeks later. They can then at least respond, well, we gave you that special edition shoe from completing the Shields assignments. Thanks, I guess. There's also a lot of conjecture about whether or not the Division 2 will release in time for Christmas sales, or will happen in 2019. I was initially optimistic that it would be this year, but was persuaded I was kidding myself. I guess that considering that the Xbox One X patch only just arrived, I'm going to take a wild guess that the Division 2 will be late as well. But the big news is obviously patch 1.8.1 Delta. Slipping in a covert server downgrade and hoping nobody would notice was fucking hilarious. And by hilarious, I mean the Division stopped functioning. I'd love to be in that meeting when some brainiac suggested they cut back on servers at the start of a fucking global event. Let's just say the first few days were a fucking Delta era holocaust. They have significantly extended the global event duration, which in my book was a very smart move. But fucking hell guys, cutting back on servers again is a cheap ass move. Cutting back on servers during a global event is a bit like cutting back on ammunition during a war. Of course the fucking soldiers are going to notice that they don't have any fucking bullets. Strangely, just like the Division community noticed that they didn't have any fucking servers. There are significant improvements to the drop rates of various loot across the board, in theory. Although the reality is that some of the changes appear to be either broken, not implemented, or bugged at the moment. But in theory, this is good news. The targeted caches are great, although admittedly I thought all gear sets would be on sale during every GE, given how the game is winding up and all. The inclusion of 100 div tech on the season pass supply drops is a small but brilliant change. Let's face it, the only reason anyone used to cap that was to get rid of the annoying fucking alert every time they logged into the base of operations. If you have 3 or 4 characters now, doing the rounds and picking up the supply drop on all your toons will give you a solid chunk of div tech. This, combined with all the new sources of div tech in the game, means that there's ample div tech around to please the average player, and most likely antagonise hardcore players, who probably feel like div tech and gear are being handed out faster than a kiddie fiddler gives out candy at the local fairground. There's been significant changes to vendors and global events caches. Mostly good, but some of it not going far enough, and some of it frankly arriving far too late in the game's life cycle in my humble opinion. The fucktard pointless standard cache has finally been removed, as even the community management team once said, "It's a mistake that it was even there." Credit to them for leaping into action and removing it in under a year. Each global event will now have individual caches per classified gear set for that global event. This allows the player to purchase, for example, a Firecrest cache that guarantees 1 item from the Firecrest set. There is now a classified gear cache at the special vendor, which costs the fucking earth and drops 1 random item from amongst the entire classified gear pool. That is there all the time. Don't get me wrong, I'm very pleased that there's more focused ways of targeting classified gear during a global event, but it's still a bit on the piss in my humble opinion. The 4 sets from a specific global event can now be focused really well, but gear sets from other global events are still a fucking total crapshoot, unless that specific global event is active. And all gear sets outside of a GE are a fucking long shot as usual. I guess given my hopes and suggestions surrounding this issue, my verdict would be this. If you're after a specific item during a GE and that item is one of the gear sets of that GE, then it's practically face roll to cap the entire set. Outside of those specific circumstances, it's still fairly long odds. But putting all my griping and bitching aside, the current changes to the global event loot system, whilst being far from perfect, are vastly superior to the prior situation. Let's face it, before these changes, the average PvE player was highly unlikely to finish a set outside of a global event ever. All the exotics have been added to the open world bosses, which is great, but about fucking time. Don't get me wrong. It's just fucking dandy doing a run of LZ bosses and capping my 28th fucking Caduceus, but having the rest of the loot in the pool will please many. Removing the premium vendor exotics from the open world loot pool and exotic caches has finally, after much bleating and fucking screaming, happened. I would really like to say this is great, but what I have to say is it's fucking year 3 of the Division, and this only gets done now, 2 months before the Division 2 reveal at E3. Seriously, if Massive ran a hospital, they'd be prying open coffins with fucking crowbars to give people their medicine. They are that behind fucking schedule. Overall, the prevalence of classified drops is increased across the board. Some people are happy. Some of the hardcore feel like it's a bit of a charity giveaway. Although it's obviously got nothing to do with charity, because nobody from the ETF is trying to fucking sabotage it. Personally, I'm a lazy cunt, so I won't be happy until I get 2 pieces of classified gear every time I give a bottle of water to a citizen in need. But some players are unhappy that getting the loot may be getting way too easy now. In a nutshell, all this shit has taken far too long to do. I'm not entirely convinced that all of the drop tables are implemented correctly. But yes, for a lot of players, myself included, these are generally well received changes. We also have 2 new legendary difficulty missions, Amherst Apartment and Grand Central Shithouse. I think this is great news for players and represents a significant leap in the deliverables quota for Massive. I'm quietly impressed that they managed to hire a work experience student to come in and type plus 25% in the health pool value boxes of over 100 NPCs. Credit where credit is due, and by credit I obviously mean the student credit towards their diploma. I hope they hire the kid when they graduate from school. Anti-Skell, McCracken and Vixen have been providing me with details of the current exploit league tables. Honestly, at this point I'm too tired and frankly don't have the fucking energy to list and detail them all. Seriously, it's got to the fucking point where I could make a 15-part video series just covering the exploits and gear bugs. I'm not even exaggerating. Let's just say anyone who knows about some of them and has dog shit where their soul should be could happily go out and make themselves indestructible by just fucking around with their gear sets. Sadly, I think we're probably going to have to put up with this shit for the rest of the lifespan of the game, and I for one won't forgive them for that. Luckily for us though, we are at least being compensated by the introduction of yet another fucking wave of quasi-legal pedo gambling. Fucking awesome. Despite all the problems with the servers, bugs, glitches, exploits, delta errors, broken commendations, and unfinished or incorrectly implemented changes, Massive did manage somehow, against the fucking odds, to valiantly muster the energy to scrape together the money for a few thousand extra man-hours of developer time to design and introduce just enough new cosmetic outfits to fill a humble round of pedo caches for Mark III of pedo gambling. Colour me cynical, but I would fucking postulate that Massive is sometimes capable of perfectly implementing a rather gigantic amount of changes to this game, both on time and working as intended, when provisioned with sufficient motivation. That motivation being snaffling up money from children and gambling addicts. If I were even more cynical than I am already, as impossible as that may seem to some of you, one might even go as far as to speculate that they bankrolled the production of Pedo Cash Mark III by saving money on cutting back on the fucking servers. Seriously, they have outdone themselves. So how's global event Blackout doing? Well, I'm also going to have to call out Massive for breaking UK trades description laws. The patch notes for 1.8.1 read, over 40 new commendations unlockable in the new global events. I think that should read, over 40 new commendations, about 20 of which might be unlockable in the new global events for some players as long as their profiles aren't bugged. As usual, lots of the commendations did not precisely correspond to the fucking descriptions. It's like someone in Malmo is writing the descriptions in Swedish and using Google fucking Translate to approximate a description. When your commendation descriptions require volunteers online to interpret them correctly and post their actual meaning on Reddit, then perhaps that doesn't qualify as a description at all. I apologise for being pedantic, but surely the description should describe what one is required to do. I'm sorry, but as fun as the global events are, the implementation is still fucking unprofessional. I shouldn't have to spend a whole fucking morning trying to cap a couple of GE commendations only to find out that one has an incorrect description and the other got broke during maintenance. I am supremely unimpressed that Ubisoft would serve this fucking crap up on a plate, so fucking obviously broken, and expect nobody to get upset. There also seems to be an element here of profile-specific bugs. I know people who have capped commendations that I simply can't cap. For example, certain locations will never flag as completed for me. The shocking by proxy mechanic caused by teammates is hate-fueling and rage-inducing. What a great idea! How about a mechanic where if someone fucks up, some random member of your random group in an online video game, they can not only shock themselves, they can also shock you and interfere with your fucking commendation caps. And also totally fail one commendation for you altogether. Genius! Congratulations though, I will reluctantly give them credit for inventing the most annoying game mechanic in the Division so far. Obviously I'm not counting the mechanics introduced by bugs. The deployed skills bug in Hudson Yards is still a thing. I don't know, it's just got embarrassing still bringing up shit like this after all this time. It's like being in an episode of The Twilight Zone where you're stuck in a time loop, forced to repeat the same shit over and over for eternity. Just fix the fucking bug in Hudson Yards, please. Well, I don't want this news dump to be all doom and gloom, so let's put on our positivity aprons, form a circle, and do a group hug. How about some uplifting and motivating artwork from Division community members inspired by the events of recent weeks? Pastieman69 produced a fantastic bit of illustration that also serves as an educational tool for new players, so they can understand the mechanics behind global event Blackout. Pastieman69 also graced us with another piece of fine art, on this occasion exploring textiles as a medium for satire. He designed an arm patch for the next GE. The Delta arm patch would be a superb prize for every player that experiences 50 Delta errors during the next global event. I'm personally very pleased that it's so beautifully designed, because let's face it, every last motherfucker is going to cap that on day one. Here is a clip entitled Cha Cha Slide by ThatOlderGamer, which nicely shows the servers wigging out during the global event. This piece of fine art is entitled Working on It by Zoofishin. I think it's intended to be a hyper-realistic representation of how Division players perceive the state of the game. Ergo, not fucking finished yet. I don't know about you, but I found that art to be both uplifting and educational. Well, I guess it's time to grab the proverbial toilet paper and wipe this one up. LtBuzzLitebeer has started streaming and has become an instant success. Big congratulations to him for rolling his beast of a rig into the world of Twitch, and thanks to everyone who supported his stellar channel launch. Special mention to KalStreams for once again sacrificing his time and patience, being the science guy who did all the technical fuckery to get yet another streamer off the ground. Thank you kindly, sir. Nomad Clear Sky gets an honourable mention, as promised, for his contributions to the fields of scientific research, world peace, and developing several strains of pest-resistant wheat to feed poor third world nations. Hopefully, he'll be able to take some time out of his busy schedule, saving an endangered species of echidna to go and get his Nobel Peace Prize next week. There you go, Nomad. I'll accept payments in cash, gold, or pharmaceuticals. I don't give a fuck which. Looking at the totality of the changes introduced to the game recently, I think the saddest thing about the current state of the Division is that we have almost become accepting of the fact that all the new stuff arrives broken and late. We associate the Division with shit that don't work. Like a drunken Santa that tramples on all the presents. He means well, but he's a useless cunt. Despite my slightly less than positive tone, I'm actually a big fan of a lot of the stuff being introduced into the game at the moment. New legendary missions, more global events, revised loot drops, removing the vendor shithouse exotics from the loot tables, the Xbox One X patch. This is all great stuff. I'm just exasperated by the fact that half the shit being introduced is broken, and it's being introduced at the end of the game's life cycle. I'm seeing broken shit in the game, and a whole raft of fucking glitched loadout based exploits that, let's be honest, are probably not going to have fixes bankrolled before this game ends. But nevertheless, Ubisoft is still somehow finding the money to design, create and implement tons of perfectly crafted cosmetic skins for their fucking damned pedo caches. It's disheartening, and frankly a little shameful, that the only area of the Division that has always worked 100% correctly 100% of the time has been the payment and purchasing mechanism for buying in-game currency. Receiving the goods broke down for a few weeks, but the paying part, that shit always works. This legacy will haunt the Division 2, mark my words, because the player community will never forget the fuckery of the Division 1, and because it's an almost certainty that the same omnishambles will play out the same way in the Division 2. Well, I would love to stay here all night and continue to radiate the pure, brilliant light of love and positivity. But unfortunately, there's a rumour that methylated spirits is on sale at the local hardware store, so I need to get my arse down there in a hurry, or I'll be drinking cheap cider for the rest of the week. So until next time, good luck, and happy hunting.